There's no doubt about it, reptiles are expensive. However, the more a reptile costs does not translate to being a better pet. So if you're looking for your next reptile, or maybe even your first reptile, and you're on a budget, here are 3 options that you need to consider. So when we talk about reptiles on a budget, there's a few things that we need to account for. Not only the price of the reptile itself, but also the price of setup. So we might have a couple of reptiles that are a little bit more expensive than you would expect, but the cost to set them up is significantly cheaper than some of the other options. And right off the bat, we are not going to consider bearded dragons, leopard geckos, or crested geckos. If you're looking for a reptile, I'm going to assume that you've probably already looked at those 3 options. So coming in at number 3, we have the eastern collared lizard, specifically the female blazing blue. And the reason we have to go with a female is because males are significantly more expensive. Males typically are more vibrant. They get those big bright yellow heads and the big blue bodies. The females also get blue bodies and the yellow heads, but they're just not quite as vibrant as a male. My blazing blue females, I have a pair of them. They cost me right around $300, but the setup cost was very minimal. We needed a basking light, a UVB, and then it's just a matter of decorating the enclosure with hides, substrate, etc. You can really set it up, be creative, set it up however you see fit. But eastern collared blazing blue, not only are they affordable reptiles, but they are absolutely amazing pets. They are handleable, they are super cool to interact with, and they are awesome to observe. They are diurnal, so they are active during the day, and they just go absolutely crazy for bugs. They will need a terrestrial setup, although they do climb a little bit, so I'd recommend putting in, some slanted cork barks or some pretty thick branches that they can climb up and down, and give them some alternate options for how close they can get to that basking light. Then coming in at number 2, we have the Urodactyloides, aka the Chameleon Gecko. And this time we are going with a male Urodactyloides because the females are going to cost significantly more. Males are much more common than females due to incubation temperatures, so if you are going with the Urodactyloides on a budget, definitely check out the males. And we are specifically talking about the Agricola Urodactyloides. There are a few more like Velarde and Symmetricus that are quite a bit more expensive, so we're going to go with the Urodactyloides Agricola or Chameleon Gecko that is a male. Although, as I state, anytime I'm talking about the Chameleon Gecko, I do not recommend these for kids because they are very small and fragile. But imagine having a baby crested gecko that always stays a baby and doesn't jump out of your hand every time you pick it up. I really compare these to like the size of a baby crested gecko, more of a personality like a Chihuahua gecko, but they walk like a chameleon. Super cool species, definitely one that you should have on your list, at least to check out and make it an option. A typical Urodactyloides male Agricola is going to cost you probably around $175 up to $300, but generally you're going to be able to find a deal that's significantly less than $300. Not to mention the setup for these guys is pretty simple and very cost efficient. They are an arboreal gecko. They'll have a setup very closely related to that of a crested gecko, and they'll thrive around that 75, 76, 78 temperature, require spikes of humidity, and thrive on a crested gecko diet much like Pangea or Rapashi, with bugs mixed in every now and then. And that'll bring us to number 1. What, in my opinion, is the best reptile on a budget. We need to look no further than the Schneider Skink. Some of you may have seen that coming. If you've watched my channel in the past, you know that they are just absolutely my number 1 favorite reptile. Not only that, but they are extremely inexpensive. Now, they might be a little bit difficult to locate during the winter, but once spring comes around and the imports come in, they are fairly easy to find. The only downside to the Schneider Skinks is there's not really a captive bred market for them, which we are working on. However, for the time being, it is predominantly wild caught. Now, when I first started my Schneider Skink breeding project, I picked up 10 Schneider Skinks, and I believe I paid $250 for all 10 of them. So right around $25 a piece. But if you buy them individually, you're probably going to expect somewhere around the $30 to $60 range. However, with that being said, their setup is a little bit more expensive than the others because I do recommend you get a 4x2x2 enclosure that can be pretty expensive. Exceeding $200 for sure. But the rest of the setup is pretty easy. They're going to need a basking light. They're going to need a high UVB, which is the T5 linear UVB, That does get a little bit costly, but as far as inside of their enclosure, you're going to go with a sand soil mix, and then it just comes down to the hides, branches, and foliage that you intend to use for your Schneider Skink. So while you might get a good deal at $30 or even $25 like I did, you're going to spend a little bit more on the back end on the setup cost. But you won't regret it because they're absolutely amazing reptiles, especially for your first reptile or in addition to your current collection. You really can't go wrong with any of these three options. And that's three reptiles that you can get on a budget that make fantastic pets. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.